You what I had? Oh, okay, here we go. So let's do over. Good morning, y'all. So today is 3/12/24. I call to order the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. First, I have roll call. Kelly, I see you. Lieta, and I see you also. And I am here. And third on the agenda is the approval of minutes for December 12, 2023 and January 9, 2024.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. So approved. And then 4 on the agenda, I have the fire mobilization intra-agency agreement with the Washington State Patrol by Brian Hawley. Brian, the floor is yours, please.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Agabe, and I will attempt to share my screen. Okay, was I successful with that? Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. And I have actually, this is the first of 3 items on the agenda today. A couple of them are agreements. One of them is a presentation on some recent evaluations that we received. So the first is the mobilization agreement with the Washington State Patrol. And I'll start that presentation. Just for a bit of background, the fire services in Washington maintain a mobilization plan. The plan is to provide a mechanism for resources to respond to fires, disasters, and other really large-scale events where a single agency or neighboring agencies just aren't able to handle it. It's primarily used for wildfire, but in past years it was also expanded to include other types of disasters. And an example of that would be the landslide in Oso several years ago. Many resources were brought to bear there, but this mobilization plan wasn't set up to reimburse for any of that. So it was expanded to include other events other than fires. The first plan was in 1993 after fires in Spokane. It's really a living document and as updated as a result of lessons learned. So it provides for reimbursement through this agreement. And I'll just mention, it's with the Washington State Patrol, and that's because the State Fire Marshal's office falls under the Washington State Patrol. So that's who the agreement is with. So when assets are mobilized, when there's a state-approved mobilization, it's possible for agencies that participate to be reimbursed. And every year, the State Fire Marshal's office works with the state fire chiefs to produce a reimbursement schedule. So that schedule is updated annually. This is the renewal of an existing agreement. So we've had this agreement in the past, and this agreement will go through 2029. So currently, Tumwater hasn't historically participated in statewide mobilizations. There are a number of agencies in Thurston County that do, primarily the fire districts. And really for us, the limitation has been staffing. It's just difficult to send 3 personnel and an apparatus, out of the area for, in some cases, up to 2 weeks. So it's primarily, that's been our limitation. We have actively enhanced our wildland firefighter training, and as that training occurs and staffing and equipment permit, we may participate in mobilizations in the future. I will say we do occasionally participate in another program called the REMS team, and that basically is we have one member who's typically a paramedic that's trained in some specialized rescue techniques. And we have sent personnel out as part of those REMS teams, and they're basically like a rescue team for firefighters on these large incidents. But that falls under a different agreement, not this mobilization agreement. This agreement would apply, though, if there were a large incident in Thurston County, much like the the Bordeaux fires in years past in West Thurston. And if there was a mobilization and we sent resources, this agreement would apply in that case. So if it was a declared mobilization, we could seek reimbursement for our costs. So the ask is to recommend to council adoption of the interagency agreement and place it on the consent agenda at the next regular council meeting. And I will stop my sharing and be happy to take any questions.
Peter, I have a question. Well, he's muted, so I assume I have the floor. Okay, great. Chief, one of the questions is, an example, when there was that DuPont incident, was Tumwater, is that an example where Tumwater was mobilized?
In that case, that was more under a mutual aid agreement.
Okay.
That was a specific incident that, we responded just because of our mutual aid agreements in that case. So even though it was in Pierce County, we still respond mutual aid to assist them. So that incident was not a statewide mobilization of resources.
Could you give an example of one of those, a recent one?
Of a mobilization?
Yeah.
Really some of the large fires you see around the state, one probably closest to us in the most recent past would be, say, the Goat Rocks fire in Lewis County. There was a very large mobilization for that. And if you happen to drive through, say, the Randall area at that time, you would see large camps set up. They actually set up on those incidents, kitchens, communications. They set up a camp at most of these large fires that have a statewide mobilization.
Thanks, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh.
So, are you
Looks
done?
like Kelly has her hand up too, it looks like.
Leetta, another example I was going to give, it's coming up on the 10-year mark, would be the Oso landslide. So there was a statewide mobilization there as well.
Yes, and we did send Lieutenant Kaler, our training officer on the SORT team, actually participated in that event.
Any other questions from anybody? So on that note, I have by Chief Orley an action for us to place the fire mobilization intra-agency agreement with the Washington State Patrol on the March 19, 2024 City Council consent calendar with a recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign.
So moved.
So, Kelly, did you second?
I did.
Okay, so then, let's call for the vote. What's the issue, Kelly?
Aye.
Leetta?
Doing it one by one. Okay, aye.
Okay, I too, so pass. So the fourth agenda still Brian Orley is a Washington State Survey and Rating Bureau update.
Great, thank you. Yeah, as the week went by, we had several items come up that just seemed more fitting to bring to you to brief out. So the agenda kind of grew over the week, and this was one of the items that we wanted to share some news. So I'm going to share my screen again. Looks like that's visible for you. I can't believe it. I'm 2 for 2 on screen sharing so far. That's a record.
Don't jinx it, Chief.
I got one more to go. Yes. So just starting off here with the Washington Survey and Rating Bureau. I wanted to give some background just in case you weren't aware of what the WSRB is. And I think I skipped ahead a slide. Yes. So the Survey and Rating Bureau It's an independent organization and not for profit. And it's meant to produce data that insurance companies use to better understand risk as they price their insurance products. So really, they need accurate data from communities to actually, inform that process and help make those decisions. So the criteria is evaluated and approved by the Office of the Insurance Commissioner here in Washington. Most, but not all, companies use WSRB data as one data point in determining their insurance premiums. There are other factors that come into play, and I don't have full insight into what all those are, other than the protection class rating. So the Rating Bureau assigns a protection class, or noted here PC, to each property in the state. It's based on the community's protection class rating, the distance to a fire station, the distance to a standard fire hydrant, and also, if there aren't hydrants, how much water can be supplied through water tender operations, those large trucks that carry 1,000 to 2,000 gallons of water. And we do have some pockets in Tumwater where we don't have adequate fire hydrants, and we have mutual aid agreements and actually automatic aid agreements with our response partners to send water tenders when we have fires in those areas. So the process is, evaluating only the fire protection capabilities. So the WSRB doesn't look at how you respond to a medical call or those types of things. It's strictly fire response. There's 4 factors. They look at your fire department operations, which makes sense. That's 40% of the score. They look at your community's water supply, which is 35%. They look at emergency communications. So TCOM is evaluated as part of this process. And just a bit more information on that. These evaluations occur every 5 years, and TCOM is evaluated when they evaluate the Olympia Fire Department in their cycle. And then the data for TCOM applies to all agencies in Thurston County then. And the last is fire safety control, and that's fire prevention, community risk reduction is 16% of the score. So as you can imagine, we supply the WSRB with a considerable amount of data, like 3 to 5 years worth of everything, responses, training, equipment, maintenance, They get into details, even looking at the certifications of the mechanics that work on our vehicles. It's a very detailed analysis and requires a site visit. And we had our site visit in July of 2023. The representative came here after we've sent them all the data. They come to the site to ask questions, look at facilities, equipment, and ask more questions. So we recently received our new protection class rating, and the scale is 1 to 10, and the lower the score, the better. And so effective July 1st of this year, our protection class rating will go from class 4 to class 3. And that's obviously good news for us. We've been class 4 the last 2 evaluation cycles. Prior to that, we were class 5. So that rating will apply to commercial and residential properties located within 5 miles of a responding fire station and having a standard hydrant distribution. So properties not meeting those requirements, certainly the 5 miles applies, I believe, in the entire city, but not everybody has hydrants. So you could have pockets of the city where there's a higher protection class rating for specific properties. Those can be gotten directly from the WSRB if any community member has a question about a specific address. The information's there to contact them to find out what that is. The majority of the city will be a protection class 3 though. And this is just a distribution of the 662 rated departments in the state of protection class, and we now fall within that class 3 group, which puts us in the top 14% in the state. The only Class 1 department in the state is the city of Seattle, and that's happened over the last couple of years that they were able to obtain that rating. The city of Olympia is a Class 2 department. The city of Lacey, I'm sorry, a Class 2 rating. The city of Lacey is a Class 3 rating. Fire District 3 that surrounds Lacey, I can't remember their number. They may be a 4, I'm not sure, but Olympia is a 2, and the city of Lacey is also a 3. This is, I know some of you like data, so I just wanted to show what's happened, what caused the change in our protection class. And I just want to point out some basic numbers here. If you look at the colored areas, so under water supply, our score, it actually decreased a bit. The percentage, say 92%, that means we got 92% of the full credit. So we went from 92 to 84 in the water area, but I'll assure you that is still a very good score. We have a very robust and capable water system in the city. I see a question.
Oh, Chief, I just put it up. I can wait till you're done, or I could ask it now. It's up to you.
You can ask it now, it's fine.
So when we were presented by Dan Smith, how would that 3 million water tank impact our score regarding the water?
Yeah, I would hesitate to say how the rating bureau might look at something like that, but I would say it would certainly help because what they do is they actually send us the list of properties in the city and specific fire hydrants, and they want to know what the water flow is out of each of those hydrants. And we can either do that by manually going out and actually flowing the hydrant, or we've gotten help from folks in engineering to actually calculate those flows. Either is acceptable. So in any case, when you bolster your water supply, you're going to improve those flow numbers, which will in general help your rating. And
Thanks,
I just wanted to, yes, I just wanted to comment here. The score decreased a little bit for water supply, and in talking to the representative, it was primarily due to they want to see every fire hydrant in the city inspected every year and a flow test done every 5 years. And right now, the city just doesn't have the staff to maintain that schedule. So that dropped off a little bit in talking to Steve Craig in the water department. And they certainly have plans to, as staffing permits, to ramp that back up again. The fire department score improved from 56% to 66%, and I'll touch on some of the reasons for that here in a minute. Communications stayed about the same. Fire safety control did improve as well, from that 40% to 56%. It gets into the weeds as to how they calculate these, but you can see for 2023, our score is 2.76, and they actually round up on those scores. So that puts us at a 3. So when we talk about fire department operations, the rating bureau is measuring us against an ideal for Tumwater. It's like, what would it take to get to Class 1 for Tumwater? And their calculations are that for the type of commercial structures primarily we have in the community, that we should be able to flow 4,000 gallons per minute of water. And if you take the measure that each engine can flow 1,000 gallons per minute, that's 4 staffed fire engines we should have in our community, plus a staffed ladder truck in the community. We do get credit for having Olympia's ladder truck as part of our mutual aid response, but we don't get full credit because we don't have our own. So generally, though, our score improved because we did invest in staffing and equipment. Our average number of personnel per day went up, and we've invested in say fire hose and nozzles and apparatus that helped improve our score in the fire department operations. Basically in the fire safety control area, it was the number of inspections that we've been doing with our fire prevention officer that helped improve our score considerably in that area. It is an area where I'll mention towards the end that we could improve more. It's recommended that every business in the city is inspected annually, and one person just does not have the capacity to do that. So we we have a matrix and we focus on higher risk properties that we do every year. But then there are several other, smaller businesses and businesses with less hazards that we aren't able to get to every year. Yes, Councilmember Dahlhoff.
Chief, are those elements going to be addressed in your strategic plan?
You're reading my mind. It's coming up in the next slide. So yes.
Thank you.
And again, I want to point out the city does have a very robust water system, and we do score very well in that area, but it would improve if the hydrants were inspected annually. And TCOM, as I mentioned, was done every 5 years. I wanted to just show a couple of, yes, Councilmember Agabe.
So you said that the city is not able to do every yearly inspection because of just one staff. Is that correct, what I heard?
That's correct. Yeah, and I think that applies to both the fire hydrant inspections and the business inspections. It's just, capacity just isn't there right now to do that.
So how long have we had that problem?
Well, we didn't have a full-time fire inspector until 2013. So in 2013, we started ramping up our inspection program, and that did help improve our score. And then as we, that person retired, so we had a brief time, we didn't have a fire inspector. And our current fire inspector, Mark Armstrong, has been on the job for, a little over 2 years in his position now, and is really doing a great job in that position.
So
I just want
one second, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I didn't want to cut you short if you had another question.
Okay, for our fire department, what is the number of FTE?
So the total number of FTEs in the fire department right now is 53, and 46 of those are actually part of operations that are part of the daily staffing. So each day we have 11 staff on duty. 9 of those are in the city and 2 are on the medic unit in Rochester.
Thank you.
I just wanted quickly a couple of slides here. This is data from the Survey and Rating Bureau. So he sent me a couple of these maps, and this is just simply driving distance as measured from each of the fire stations. You can see in the middle at the top is Station 2 and Station 1, and the 1.5 mile driving distance. And then the next slide, it gets a little more confusing. But if you look at the outer boundary, that's the 2.5 mile driving distance in the city. So basically, as they look at this map, they identify areas to the west of the city towards Black Lake and to the south where we have, some driving distance coverage issues. And as Councilmember Dahlhoff mentioned, we're going to be trying to address some of those issues in our planning. And we are going to have I believe, much better maps come out of our planning process. We have an agency evaluation going on right now. We're doing work with GIS staff, with our consultants. So we'll have much more to bring to you on our strategic planning to show you some of these areas of need. So really, where areas for improvement that we've found, we need to better document our training. And it's something the consultant from the WSRB said all fire departments struggle with. We do a lot of training. We just need to document it better. And we do have a learning management system that we document that training in. So that's an area of focus for us. It would be helpful to increase the number of fire inspections annually. And that's only going to be done by having an additional fire inspector to be able to go out and do that work. Work can be done to improve our fire hydrant inspections, and I know the water resources folks are working on that. Yes, Councilmember Agabe.
So for the fire inspectors, when they go out, they go there, they do their inspection at cost, right? Which means that the city derives the revenue from their visit, right?
Yes, we have a fee schedule for our fire inspections. So there is a fee for that, but currently the revenue generated from that program does not fully support the position. So yes, we do generate revenue from the fire inspections.
Okay, so my concern is I've had about 4 years ago about having one particular staff going out to do inspections, and the same thing as continue giving your presentation this morning. And you've just said that even though there is a cost for the inspection, but that cost is not enough to cover the staffing, adequate staffing. So my question is, despite that the cost is not enough, do you think that is not enough? Do you think that is not an important function that the city has to do? Because if there's a fire, I mean, if you're not doing a yearly inspection, I'm not sure what that does. If there's a fire at an establishment that you have to send to engine trucks to that has not been inspected within the past 3 years.
Yes,
So
we would.
what are we doing about staffing?
Yeah, well, I think as part of our, you know, in this slide I'm showing here, we're going to incorporate some of the work from our strategic plan into our goals and priorities that we bring to the council. And with that is going to be some discussion about how we can increase our staffing to inspect every business every year. And that may include a discussion about our current fee schedule. Our fee schedule is, we do charge less than some jurisdictions do. So I think it'd be appropriate to have a discussion about that and whether that program should help more support those positions. And as far as, you know, those annual inspections, they are extremely important for our staff, as you can imagine, especially for, you know, businesses with hazards there. It's important to know that they're properly storing those you know, substances. It's important to know that their fire alarm system works, that their fire sprinkler system works. And we have a pretty robust system in place for tracking that. So we feel like we've got a pretty good handle on those systems, but still we need to get somebody out there with eyes on in a lot of these areas to identify what the issues might be. So really to wrap up, yes, we were very pleased to finally, they've switched the way they've done some of these evaluations, and the reports have been much delayed. Typically, it doesn't take this long to get the report back. So we were pleased that we got the report back while we're doing our strategic planning and not after. So this will help inform our plan and ultimately our you know, our strategic priorities that we're setting to help improve our services. So it's also going to inform, I mentioned here at the very end, we're going to be looking at what's called the standards of cover, because as I mentioned, there are some areas of the city to the south and the west where we're kind of stretched to cover those areas. So we really need to look at our resource deployment and the best position for, say, a new fire station. Where could we place that you know, in the coming years would serve our growing community as we see more commercial, as we see more apartments, more residential. And again, that'll be part of the planning process. So just to wrap things up on this topic, you know, I personally, based on my conversations with the analysts from the WSRB and some of the things we can improve on, you know, I see a path to the city being a Class 2 fire department in the next evaluation cycle, which will be in 5 years, in 2028. So we're going to identify those things and work on them. You know, again, the number is important, but really what's important is service to our community. And if we really do the right things to staff, equip, and train in our fire department, we can get to being a Class 2 fire department. So I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much. Is there any question for Chief Holly? Oh, Leora.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have a question. I was just saying, it would help for a council because there's so many different elements, right, in the city that it would help. This is a great reminder if that's the long-term goal, right? Class 2. And then when it comes to the budget, the biennium budget, with your budget requests to remind us, like, this helps us get to this class 2. So when you're doing your budget requests, it would help me to go the elements that we need to be able to get to class 2. Just a little note there.
Noted. Thank you.
Well spoken, Leora. Thank you. So, any more questions for Chief Holly? No? Thank you, Chief Holly. So, next on the agenda, I have. So, Chief Holly, before I move to the next agenda, there is no recommended action for this survey, right? This is just informational only, right?
That was it. The
Okay.
Survey and Rating Bureau was information only.
Thank you. So next on the agenda, we have an intergovernmental EMS contract with Thurston County for Basic Life Support Funding 2024 extension. And it doesn't say who is presenting that. Are you,
it's me.
Chief Holly?
It's me again.
Oh, wow. So you, go ahead then.
Sorry, I kind of took over the agenda this week. Let me share my screen. I think this one hopefully will be pretty straightforward. So just a brief overview. We've been, Medic One has been a great partner for us, for Tumwater Fire Department in the city since 1974. Just a reminder that the first career fire department staff here in Tumwater were paramedics, partially funded by Thurston County Medic One, and that partnership has continued. And as part of that, there are two pieces. There's the advanced life support funding, which funds our paramedic services and personnel. But we also have a basic life support, or BLS, funding agreement with Medic One. So our fire engines are staffed with emergency medical technicians. They go out and provide care for, in general, what could be considered non-life-threatening issues, falls, trauma, simple illnesses and what have you. So that's the distinction between ALS, advanced life support, and basic life support. We do have an agreement with Medic One that helps provide funding for our basic life support program. And I put this picture in here because this really identifies a few of those items that we've purchased with basic life support funding. You can see the personnel there deploying what are called rescue struts, and those struts help stabilize a vehicle. Because you can imagine you don't want to be working on the side of a vehicle like that could potentially roll over on you. So we've purchased those rescue struts with basic life support funding. It's a little more difficult to see, but they're over the shoulder of the person in the bottom left. There's a blue tool there that says Hearst on it. And that's basically the jaws of life. That is the end of a jaws tool. And the tools now are actually battery powered. We used to have small motors and hydraulic lines, and now they are lithium battery powered, and they are just as powerful as the gas powered tools. So this was just an example that showed some of the items that we purchased with our basic life support funding. It also provides funds to help us train our staff, and as we have what's called in the county OTEP, or ongoing training and evaluation programs. Emergency medical technicians and paramedics are required to get a certain amount of continuing education each year, and Medic One provides funding to the city that helps us do that in covering overtime costs for training, again, for buying training equipment and those types of things. The funding comes through Medic One. It's funded, the dollars come from the Thurston County Emergency Medical Services levy. There is an amount budgeted each year for the entire county for basic life support funding. And then that funding is divided up based on the number of calls that the agency runs each year. So as you can imagine, if you weren't aware, Lacey Fire District 3 has the highest call volume in the county. The city of Olympia is next, and then the city of Tumwater. So it's distributed proportionately. So the funds we received in 2023 with what's called direct support, each May we get basically a check from Medic One. And last year it was almost $55,000. That it's basically goes to the general fund to help support our basic life support needs. We also have through Medic One an account set up where we can purchase supplies, equipment, sign up for specialized training, and that money is held by Medic One and accounted for by Medic One. So when we need supplies like splints and Band-Aids and all of those kinds of things, Medic One maintains a stockpile of that equipment. So we're able to place an order and actually go over to Medic One on Pacific Avenue and pick up the supplies that we need. We don't need to order them from a third-party vendor. Medic One already does that. And this funding is basically our share to help pay for that. And I see a question.
Chief, I'm just wondering, can you remind me, I can't keep track of all the levies. Does this levy have an expiration date?
It's actually I think a permanent levy, but they did basically a lid lift on that levy 3 years ago, I believe. And I think in about 3 more years they'll look to run that levy again. So that it's generally about on a 6-year cycle now that they'll look at running the levy again. As you can imagine, it's like all property tax levies, you know, as valuation goes up, that rate goes down and needs to be reset. So the 2024 allocation hasn't been finalized yet, but you know, it'll be something I believe a bit more than what we received in 2023. So, and just one more thing on this agreement. This agreement, it's already in place. We signed it in 2020. It goes through 2025, but Medic One requires that we annually acknowledge that. So they send a letter over that the mayor needs to sign. So we wanted to brief you on that before it went to the consent agenda. So the ask is to recommend the intergovernmental agreement with Medic One for funding for approval at the next council meeting on the consent agenda. And I'll stop sharing now.
Do we have any question for Chief Hawley? Okay, on the score, we have a recommended action to place the 2024 Basic Life Support Funding Extension Letter of Acknowledgement with Medic One on the March 19, 2024 City Council consent calendar with recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign. So I am not going to individually call upon us to, did I say yeah or nay? Do I get a second?
I'll second.
So Peter, did you make the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I just read the title. So do I get any second? I had Kelly said second. So on that note, I'll call for the vote. And if you are in support of placing the 2024 Basic Life Support Funding Extension Letter of Acknowledgement with Medic One on the March 19, 2024, City Council consent calendar with recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign. Are we in approval?
Are you looking for a yes or an aye or?
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, for me too. I think I heard Kelly say yes. On that note, this is going to be placed on the consent calendar for March 19. I think that's just about it. Do we have any additional items to be
One question I
discussed?
had is for the timeline for the strategic plan for fire and police, the timeline for that.
Okay.
I can speak to fire. You know, we have a draft of our strategic plan we're working on right now, and we need to complete the agency evaluation. So I would say it's probably for us going to be closer to the end of, say, April, before we would have a more complete plan in place.
So maybe potentially May for public health and safety, or is it going to go straight to council?
I'd have to talk to city administrator, but I believe we would brief that here as well. Yeah.
I have notes regarding our strategy in my notebook, but I don't have that right in front of me at this point in time. But I think the idea is to ensure that we've got a good solid draft and that we bring it to you. And honestly, I can't remember if we were going to do this at the committee meeting or at the full council level, or both to brief both of those documents.
Got it. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
So any other item?
Can we hear from Chief Wicks about the police timeline?
Sure.
Thanks,
Chief Wicks,
Councilmember
go ahead,
Doss.
Chief Wicks.
Yeah, ours is scheduled. We should have our plan done by the middle of May, prior to the budget. We're already on the, excuse me, we're already on the calendar for both public health and safety and a council work session to present it.
Awesome. Thanks, Chief.
Any more item? No. On that note, I think we don't have a meeting tonight, so I won't be seeing you guys tonight. So on that note, we are joined and we will see you next month. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.